Hey, it's Anthony Meisner and Mandy Pallone here to bring you your top 3 buyer things you need to know.
Yep. Oh, we got
Well,
we got to keep going. We're living.
Either way, there's a lot of good stuff for buyers in the marketplace right now. So let's just dive into it.
Okay.
This vast difference in the market between the attached and detached, we kind of saw it start to separate, but it wasn't even comparable what's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the detached single family homes, you can see this here in this next slide, have been down month over month, consistently through the year, which we've expected, right? Because higher interest rates, less buyers in the marketplace. But as a buyer, you have a lot to capitalize on right now because there's 20% less homes that sold last month in the detached market.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can afford to go to detached, highly recommend it, right? The other side of the flip side of this is if you're in the attached market, lots of competition, lots of people out there shopping, and it's largely due to affordability. So I really think with this, you got to pay attention to, what are these submarkets doing? Because certain submarkets are just blowing up. I mean, look at Superior, look at Erie, look at Longmont, right? If you're buying attached product in some of these markets, it's going to be super competitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's good or bad, it's not necessarily great as a buyer, but it is worth noting and definitely need to pay attention to it. If you're in a place like, Lafayette or in Boulder, there's still quite a bit down in sales for those, but it's been a really, really strong attached market.
Mm-hmm. Looks good. I know I have a lot of clients who are considering attached and out there shopping, and just for the price point alone, that's what they can afford right now.
Yeah, it makes tons of sense. I mean, monthly payment wise, it's so much easier to get location without having to spend a fortune on a detached product. So It's great. What about this one?
Less competitions for buyers as sales price increase. So we're seeing less competition at the higher end of the spectrum.
And we're just seeing inventory pile up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Over the last couple of months, over 2 million, we've seen tons of inventory come to market with just not enough buyers to purchase it. And honestly, every single segment, except under about 800,000, has just incrementally increased. So the vast majority of the market is still in that, 600 to a million range in Boulder County, but that product seems to just keep moving through pretty well. And it's still moving pretty quickly, right? I mean, you can see it's 25 days in the MLS. But so that's still really competitive at the lower price points. If you can get up in price point, there is so much benefit right now in the marketplace.
Yeah. We had a call this morning and we talked a little bit about that 800 to a million price range,
right?
And how we're seeing a little bit of a stall, as you can see on the graph, and how we have 32 days on market in that price range. And, what we came up with from a lender perspective is that's when we go from conforming loan limits up to jumbo loan limits. Jumbo is definitely harder to qualify for right now. So if you're a buyer or a seller in this 800 to a million in Boulder County, you got to be aware of the limits, the county loan limits. Because if you're below the county loan limit, which was about 726, and then we've got a higher end spectrum, I think it goes to 830 in certain areas of Boulder, 787 in certain other areas. But you can still do 3 and 5% down with those loans. And that's the big barrier to entry is down payment.
That is a big barrier to entry. Yep. I mean, you got to have substantially more down to keep it there. So that's kind of the bridging gap between where you might put a lot of money down for a house versus very little.
And the rates are better once it's conforming. Right now, sometimes jumbo and conforming go, back and forth together. But right now, the conforming rates are better than jumbo. So we're seeing anything under 800 is, going faster.
All right. So this is like great news for buyers, right? Because I think the big thing people kind of forget or still have this hangover from a year or two ago of bidding wars are out of control. I can't afford to buy a house because it was just too expensive. I can't pay over asking price.
I still hear that narrative, which is kind of crazy because I'm like, no, I'm not seeing a ton of bidding wars, but that's the perception that people have.
For sure. So the average listed sale price in May, which was the absolute peak of the market for the year, it is almost every single year, was 100.1%, meaning people paid basically an extra $1,000 per million, right? So it's right at asking price. That's a really good sign. You're not going to get a deal in this market, which is kind of like the other phallus out there is people think like, oh, the sky's falling. I'm going to get a deal. Well,
Mhm.
there's just no inventory. So you may have a low amount of buyers out there shopping. So if you're a buyer, go out there and look. You are going to have to compete. It's going to be competitive, but it's not going to be crazy.
Well, but honestly, sometimes some of my buyers, especially when they first start shopping, they're thinking, "Oh, I'm going to get a deal. Let's offer a little under ask." And it's like, okay, well, if you do you want the house?
Well, you know,
'Cause if
in
you
this
do,
graph,
you
we
might
can
need
see
to offer
when you
ask.
should be shopping if you're that kind of buyer.
Mhm.
And you should basically shop Christmas week.
Mhm. If you want
I
to
mean,
get a
in
deal.
all reality, you
If-
want a deal, you got to buy in the off season. And
Mhm.
so that, you know, December, maybe the first week of January over Thanksgiving weekend is a good time if you're deal shopping. But homes aren't about deals. It's about buying a house, right? Like
Right.
this is not an emotional, I mean, it's a very emotional decision, not
Mhm.
necessarily so logical. The big thing here is you can see the drastic change from a year ago, right? A year ago was the most chaotic market, is probably the best word for it, that we've ever seen in our lifetime. 106% on average list sale price. If you had detached, it was like 109%.
Mhm.
We're 5.5% down from that to being able to be basically, you know, at asking price offers,
Yeah.
which is really normal for a seasonal trend at this time,
Mhm.
right? We got out of the pandemic kind of feeling market. We're back into much more of like what you'd expect in 2014, 2017, 2019, right? So we're right back in the swing of things. But I do like this slide. It shows you the table down at the bottom corner.
Mhm.
It tells you by price point in Boulder County. It doesn't really seem to matter where you're shopping unless you're over 3 million. There's not really a lot of deals out there to be had, right? It's
Yeah.
right around asking price. You know, I mean, you just
Mhm.
got to be competitive, even though there's not a lot of buyers.
Well, and it's good to see that the 400 to 500 is going 101%. So we're having on these entry level homes, you're having to offer a little bit more to be competitive because that's what people can afford right now.
Absolutely.
And then we're also seeing that at the 1 to 1.5 million, and then another one at 1.5 to 2 million.
I think
They're
those are
going up a little
largely
bit.
due to some attached product that sold in the city of Boulder last month.
Okay.
I would expect into June, you probably see a lot less bidding wars in the higher price ranges. And it's not due to anything changing. It's just like
Right.
some new product came online. It's very exciting. It's in cool locations.
Mhm.
People pay a premium a lot of times
Yeah.
when it happens.
But if you have a buyer who is, you know, constantly wanting to put in an offer, share this video with them and let them know we're at 100% sold to list price. So,
All right. Well, let's make us a little bit bigger. And you can tell us about what's going on in the interest rate market.
yeah, so we've been seeing rates stay a little stagnant right now. We're in that 6.5 to 7% range right now. The metrics and what we're seeing about inflation is not matching where we should see rates coming down. So we should be seeing inflation. We got the big CPI report out
That's great
yesterday, and we went from 9.1% rate of inflation last year to this year 4%. Okay, so we just got the number out yesterday.
That's a big swing in 1 year. Actually, I heard it was the
5.1%.
most ever
Yes.
in 1 year, right?
Yeah. So we've seen inflation coming down. We're not seeing the rates come down as we would expect. So
It'll
there's a
happen.
lot going on, but hopefully we'll start to see rates coming down, you know, this summer. I believe that they will. And, you know, we just got to deal with what we've got now, calculate a lot of payments, and do the best that we've got with it. But rates are staying stagnant in the sixes.
I mean, it happens, and that's
Mhm.
okay. Honestly, this is a bigger window for buyers longer this year. So, being that we're speaking to all of you buyers out there at this time, this is a really good window of opportunity because buyers will come back to market when interest
Mhm.
rates are lower. So, it's not necessarily worth waiting till interest rates drop to buy a house.
Totally. Yep. And if they don't come down, then good thing you got a 6.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's too funny. All right. Well, we'll join you next week again.
Yep.
We'll talk about investors next week. Top 3 things our investors need to know because we're definitely going into another changing market here soon. This was the peak of the season. So
Yep.
we'll catch you next time.
All right. See you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.